So when you think of racetracks in Germany, there is only one. And for some, there really is only one. The NORDSCHLEIFE. But Germany, and the rest of the world for that matter, have other tracks that are pretty cool. Has other tracks that are pretty cool. Places like Lausitz, Oschersleben, stuff like that. But the big three of the German tracks all have something in common. Length and speed. One of those tracks is Aarhus that I covered probably a few months ago now, maybe back in the spring or the summer, where I attempted to max out a Formula 1 car there in Assetto Corsa, and the others are obviously the Nurburgring and Hockenheim. And while there were shows of German engineering superiority at Hockenheim and the Nurburgring, they were built before history's biggest bastards came to power. Am I actually allowed to use the N-word in this video, or am I going to get demonetised for it? But there was another track that was supposed to be built in Germany, one to rival and actually replace the Nurburgring and be even greater still than the Nurburgring. Who knows? If the Nurburgring was replaced, maybe it would have been the replacement track that everybody would be begging to be in every racing game ever. It's not coming to Assetto Corsa Competizione, lads. But before I get into the story, thanks to Renee Butler for bringing this track to my attention. And this video is most likely just going to be talking head video podcast level content, so you can minimise me and have me on in the background, because beyond plotting the course of the track in Google Earth and showing you the actual region, there aren't really any pictures in the public domain or Creative Commons that I can actually show you, but I will do my best. The Creative Commons stuff is the reason why you have to watch this rather than look at pretty pictures. I'm not going through all that copyright crap again. Anyway, the track that was supposed to replace the Nürburgring was the Deutschlandring. The Third Reich didn't exactly do subtle. Following the takeover in 1933, things were done to get Germany back to where it was, because after the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was, to put it mildly, humiliated. In fact, that was the actual idea of the treaty in the first place. So when Mr. H came to power, military production was stepped up, amongst other things. They also decided that Germany needed a new racetrack, one that would bring in potentially 1 million spectators to see how good the Auto Union and Mercedes cars were compared to the rest of the world. The Nürburgring was 14 miles long, give or take. This new track would be just over 6 miles. Still a decent length, but would be a lot faster. It was to have 35 corners and a 1 mile long start-finish straight, and that straight was about 80 feet or 12 metres wide. So it would have plenty of room for passing, and since the track was pretty wide in general across the whole track, it meant that passing could happen anywhere, anytime. For reference, most Formula 1 tracks today are 12 metres wide. Some of the corners had tarmac 20 metres wide. As for where this track was located, it was to be located near Dresden, and only a small portion of what was to be the track was ever used for any actual racing. In 1926, the ADAC and the local auto club in the Dresden area set up a hill climb that was called, in English, the First Holstein Race. This section of track was the only part of the track that was built at the time of that first hill climb, which can easily be found by searching on Google Earth. As you can see, it ran from right to left on this map and may have actually started in the town itself and then meandered through the trees in the centre of shot. And some of the drivers at the time, such as Hans Stuck and Bernd Rosenmeier, actually attempted this hill climb event, and the event ran up until at least what I can find on English language websites about 1933, so the year that the Nazis came to power, and then proposed this new 10-kilometre circuit in the general vicinity of that hill climb, of course. Now, the reason for having the track where it was for two reasons. The first is that it was near one of Germany's regional capitals, Dresden, and the open area around the proposed track meant that there could be parking for up to 300,000 cars. The second, although this might just be pure coincidence rather than careful planning, is that it was next to the border with what was then called Czechoslovakia, specifically the Sudetenland. Or as Mr. Hitler called it, mine. Germany annexed the Sudetenland in 1938, so not sure whether it was planned that the new area was going to belong to Germany or not by that point, but again, could just be coincidence. In the years following the 1933 takeover of Germany, the government started putting these plans for this new racetrack into action, in between the mass production of military gear and some of their, we'll call them social policies. It took them 6 years to lay down the tarmac that would become the track, which was basically the hill climb section, with a load of tarmac laid down connecting some of the nearby towns. So it was a mixture of Targa Florio, Spa, Brooklands, Le Mans, Hockenheim, the Nürburgring, and loads of other tracks moulded into one. No doubt there was a huge propaganda campaign attached to it as well. I don't think Joseph Goebbels was a racing fan, but then again the Nazis did have their own racing governing body, the NSKK. But it has to be said that the people that built this track didn't do so because they'd gone into the construction industry voluntarily. In Herrnstein there was a small castle that was a youth hostel that became what's thought to be Germany's first concentration camp. Basically what happened was the brown shirts stormed the building and took it over. The initial work for the track was done through slave labour, most of them communists, Jehovah's Witnesses and other so-called enemies of the Reich. In just the 12 months or so that this camp was open, about 5,500 people ended up there, and they were all at some point forced to work on the track or other construction projects in the immediate vicinity. After the camp shut and most of the prisoners were transferred to Saxburg, there were fewer actual construction workers available to work on the project because there were other stuff going on, like the autobahns. So that's why it took until 1939 for the track to be completed, April 27th to be exact. It was supposed to be called the Deutschlandring, but because this was the land of the 1,000-year rule and the land of the master race, they added the word Grosser to the name to make it the Grosser Deutschlandring, the Grand German Circuit. By which point Germany had already invaded Czechoslovakia, and then in September of 1939, full-on war happened. Obviously racing was suspended because of the war, but in 1940 the locals planned to hold a race on their new Grand Circuit in October of that year, but it just didn't happen. And then any chance of holding a race at all evaporated. In case you've never read a history book, Dresden was flattened during the war by raids from the RAF and the US Army Air Force, and the cleanup was happening as late as 1977. After the war, Dresden was under Soviet control and became part of what was East Germany, and racing in communist Europe really wasn't a thing. The hill climb circuit did however hold one last race in 1951. 2 drivers were killed, and now it, along with the rest of the circuit, are just public roads. The local government did make some changes to the local roads in the sort of early 90s to discourage illegal car racing, but small local level racing happened on the circuit in about 2007 or so. But this is where sim racing comes to the rescue. On Race Department, the modder Fat Alfie has used maps of the period and other sources to build a version of the track for Assetto Corsa. The caveat is he's had to use some artistic license for some of the trackside objects and the road details themselves. I mean, fair play to the guy, he's done phenomenal work because there's no LiDAR data of the area because realism, no proper photographs beyond some Saxony region and postcards, and it looks like something that GP Labs would probably be really good at doing, and you know, if you want to see a video on someone driving around it, he's probably the best dude to do it. I would like to see a standalone version of the track with just the hill climb because hill climb is interesting. I'll throw up some screenshots of what it might have looked like, but I don't have the time to drive it in those sorts of cars. A couple of the websites that detail the old, abandoned, incomplete and so tracks have gone on pilgrimages to this place and driven on what was left, and those sites form the basis for this video, as well as translating German language Wikipedia entries. Because to be honest, those are the only places where the info is available, such is the mystery of this place. And like I said at the top of the video, it makes you wonder what would have happened if the Nurburgring had been demolished in favour of this place. So this has been a look at the Deutschlandring that never came to be. If you've learned something new today, then click like on this video. I am so fucking tired. And if you want to see more like this, click subscribe and get the bell on so you never miss out on a future video. Big thanks to the Patreon supporters, and if you do want to give me a monthly tip, then you can do so by following the link in the description, where you'll also find links to Discord and directions to my socials. So thanks for watching. Until next time, I've been a very fatigued Aidan Millward. Have a great day wherever you are, and goodbye.